To build anything that truly lasts, it takes time.
Now joined by Mr. Nitin Awasthi, analyst at Incred Research Services. Mr. Awasthi, thank you so much for taking your time out and joining us here on ET Now. And contrary to what several newspaper and media reports suggest, you're saying that India and Indian shrimp exports continue to have an advantage over several players globally, especially Vietnam. If you can elaborate this for us and if you can put numbers into perspective for us, what does this mean for India's shrimp export market going forward?
US as a whole is a very important piece of the pie for the Indian exports. One thing that has to be recognized today is that the products that India makes, it's very hard to get those products from anywhere else in the world. So even if rates temporarily move around and temporarily on the rate side, we see some numbers moving here and there, we are not going to overnight be able, so nobody's going to be overnight be able to replace us. It's going to take a lot of effort, and it's almost impossible for some of the competitors that we have. Like, for example, Ecuador is a bigger competitor than Vietnam for us. However, the products where they could replace us, they have replaced us. In spite of that, we still hold a 40% market share within the US basket. So Vietnam, as such, the news flow does not add up, even if you look at it on a numerical basis. What the numbers say is that the advantage would come to Vietnam because the tariffs are lower from earlier. However, if all the duties are added and you look at India's structure, we will still be below 40%. So even numerically, the news flow doesn't seem to add up. Now, coming to the second point, how are we doing currently on the ground? We are doing excellently well. Um, End of last year, calendar year, we had gone ahead and said that this calendar year would be the revival year for the shrimp industry because it was facing a null for some time. If I look at the first 5 months, the data which has come out right now, out of the US, US imports are up 15%. How are we doing? Indian volumes are up 20%. Our value is up 30%. We are regaining lost market share. We have already crossed 40% of the basket, and it doesn't look like we'll be stopping anywhere before 50% by the end of this year.
Understood. We get that point completely, and you're saying that India will continue to enjoy that advantage versus several other players, especially when it comes to export to the United States. But I was going through your report, and you've highlighted two key points. One is strong supply chain, and the second is pricing power that India enjoys when it exports. If you can elaborate on this, what sets India apart, and what makes you confident that perhaps the market share of India's shrimp exports is likely to rise going forward?
It is more than the pricing itself. The pricing power that India has, it's to provide quality products which are required by the said market at a decent price. And that is the reason, even if you look at the whole shrimp consumption in the US, shrimp consumption used to be pretty low in the US. Yeah, on a per capita basis, if you look at it, per capita seafood itself is about 10 kgs in the US. Out of which shrimp today is actually on top of the whole chain. Shrimp per capita consumption in the US is about 2 kgs. It's much higher than tuna. It's much higher than salmon. Uh, so if you look at that whole pie, now what is required to expand this pie and this current pie which is there? What it requires is easy to cook products, which are almost impossible to be produced by our closest competitor because it requires manpower, which they don't have. It requires a lot of regulation and approvals, which again will take a long time, even if somebody wants to enter this field.
Understand that US is a major market for Indian shrimp exports, but apart from US, any other market that is evolving for Indian shrimp exporters?
China has evolved and become the largest shrimp importer globally. So China, if you look at it volume-wise, is a much bigger shrimp importer than US today. It used to be an exporter about 10 years ago. So, but right now it's an importer. It is the largest producer plus the largest importer of shrimp. So that is a evolving market. However, India has not been able to make a dent in that market. That market is being wholly served by Ecuador as of now. Indian acceptance is there in only value-added products in China, but the majority of the Chinese imports are commodity, and India has still not been able to make a dent on that side. However, the recent trade deal with UK could change things for us because UK is a good market for this product, and India has been suffering because of regulations in UK and EU for a very long time. So again, EU is also up for debate. If some things come on that front, it could be a significant boon for this industry.
So apart from US, we have UK and China and several other markets that are also evolving. But since you told us that profitability for feed companies and volume growth is likely to improve in calendar year 2025, if you can tell us how much volume growth are we expecting for the industry?
So this industry has been stagnant for about 5 years now. So we peaked out as an industry 5 years ago, and then of course, one after the other, there were crises which kept hitting us, and the industry could not grow. However, because of the demand which has come across, which started to flow in, the orders started to flow in late last year, last calendar year. This calendar year, what we are seeing is finally in the start of the year itself, there was a massive demand for for the hatcheries. So hatcheries is where basically the farmers go to buy shrimp. And if you see a massive demand on that side, what does it indicate? It indicates that the farmer community is finally excited and wants to get back into farming with a zeal. And that means produce more shrimp. And if they produce more shrimp, the shrimp feed sales have to go up. So this year, at least a 5% uh, upswing is expected.
7% upswing is expected. That's the word coming in. Mr. Awasthi, thank you so much for taking your time out and joining us here on ET Now and helping us understand what the outlook is for the shrimp sector going forward. Thanks so much.